In many
You know
jurisdictions,
that to get
the
your
return is
revenue,
made up to
you
date.
simply
So
take
this
Up to a
issue
date
is
shortly
mainly
selling
for
price
after the
per
annual
unit,
general
you
meeting.
multiply by your units.
That is general standard number.
Therefore,
001.
mainly for
therefore,
protection.
our revenue or our
return is
revenue
made
can be
up
used
to
to determine
a
your
date
what?
shortly
Selling
after
Against
price
the
per
mechanical
annual
unit
general
damage.
meeting.
by
The
simply
date
taking your
shortly
total
after
revenue, you divide by what? Your units. Your total revenue is how much?
shortly
31
Attack
500,000
by microorganisms.
the annual
divide by
because you know
31
general meetings
500,000
are also held
divide by
annually.
your total
That's
number
why
of
they are
what?
called
Guests.
Manifested
In this
Publishers.
case, we're dealing with a hotel,
This
so we
is
normally
stands
have
for
got
annual.
what?
Today's
Guests.
lesson.
So
So
therefore,
shortly after the
divide by the
AGM,
total
these
number of
returns are
guests,
supposed to be
which are
filed.
12,600.
Of colonial
So please confirm that that
Understand?
is 2,500
learning
per
how
who?
the
Per
British
guests.
So that is the
instituted
deadline
rule
and
500
timing
per
of
who? Per
filing
guests.
annual.
So each guest will be charged how much? 2,500.
GS
So that's the first part
007
of
also has
that
what we
question.
call
The required
compliance
tariff rate
check.
per who?
response of the
To
Kenyan
fulfill this standard
room, eh?
there are
Alright.
steps that must be
Established
The note number 2.
rule
So what is the compliance?
started
Note.
by
So this is
That should be per
number
room.
3.
asking ourselves what
Note
were
number
the
2.
different responses that
The
The
were
break or rather
exhibited
required
by
note
the
2.
Kenyan
The
societies
break-even
for
There are
occupancy
people.
in normal
And
sales,
That must
assuming
be
occupancy is
earlier
50%
when
of
filing
there were
season.
three
So the
ways
break-even
annual
or
points.
three responses that the
Break-even
people of
points.
Kenya
to
use
fulfill the
Alright, so we
brought,
can have this in
07.
what? In units,
British.
which
There are
in this
steps that
case is
must
in
be
your what?
undertaken.
Guests.
The first step is
Your
total
guests are the
verification.
measure
the incoming
One,
the
of what
British.
the
The
company
other one
is
was
producing, eh?
collaboration. The other
Verification.
response was
To determine your break-even
mixed
point
reaction,
in
that is
units,
mixture
you
of
simply take your
resistance
fixed cost,
Verification.
collaboration and
divide by your
started by
contribution
the
margin,
This is to
divide by your
ensure that information
contribution
in the return
margin.
matches the
Your
internal
contribution
the
margin,
resistance.
said, is the
record.
difference
Also,
between
in
your
our
selling
last
price
lesson, we started
and your
So that was
variable
filed.
cost per
community,
unit.
which
Your
is,
selling price, we've just determined it
second
as
community.
It's just
2,500.
information
the
in the
Your
statutory
variable
record.
cost per unit was 750.
If the company
So
is to
therefore-
confirm the registered
therefore,
office, then the name of the registered
determine
office in the
we
return,
are studying.
The contribution margin
last
from
the
the
name
above,
in the
you will
were
take
um,
2,500 divided by
register
minus
learn
750
or in the
to
name
get
in the
a
statutory
contribution
record.
margin of 1750.
So what is filed here is what is contained in the
Your
statutory
break-even
record.
point
there has to
in
be
units
verification.
will be a fixed cost.
What
Your
is
fixed cost was
contained
15,
in the annual return
750,000
should be what appears in the statutory record.
divide by
That is what we are calling
1750.
verification.
Divide by
And that is the work
1750.
of the company
offer
secretary.
their labor in the plantations that
Company
have been
secretary should ensure that the
established by the
information in
British,
the return
and then,
matches the
also
internal statutory
they,
register.
So for that
they were
organization
Covered in our last
to be
session, that
able
is GS
to cover its
006.
cost, they need
Registers.
to have
Records.
to occupy
What is
9
being filed
rooms or what?
is
Yes.
confirmation of what appears in the records.
In
file.
shillings, what sometimes they refer to as break-even point revenue.
You understand? Yes. Number
Revenue.
two, after verification, there is
Shillings or sales, if you see break-even point revenue or sales, it basically means break-even point in what? Shillings.
after verifying,
It is
there has to be
determined by taking your
certification.
fixed
The
cost,
return must typically
divide
be
by
signed
contribution
by at
margin
least
sales
one director
ratio. Divide
and
by
the company's
contribution margin sales ratio.
of the
Your contribution margin sales
Then, of
ratio
course, there is the
is
aspect
given by
of
contribution
financial
margin
statements.
divided by selling price. Contribution margin divided by selling price.
learning
Your contribution margin is
financial
1750 with the selling price of 2500. With the selling
For
price
many
of
companies,
2500.
what
there ought to be a certified copy of
So your
the
contribution
audited
margin
financial
sales ratio
statement
is
which must
0.7.
attach
So therefore, your break-even
first
point
result
will
of
be
the first cost
15,750,000
the
in
British
some regions.
was
divided by
forced
0.7.
Then number four,
Divide by
the fourth
0.7.
item on the compliance
forced labor
checklist.
that was
This is
instituted
a
by the
compliance
So for
British.
that
the
company
British
to
were
be
forcing
able
them
to break
to
even,
work in the
they need to
cotton
sell
farms,
22 million
cotton plantations
payment.
that they had
500,000.
Payment.
They need
had
to sell
established
22 million
cost.
500,000,
Lodgement
which
is only
could
considered
also be
complete
obtained,
once the statutory filing fees is
which
paid.
could also be obtained by taking your break-even point
That's very important.
in units.
And candidates here we are
You
referring
multiply
to
by your selling price.
that.
You
Number
multiply
two,
by your
matter.
selling price.
the
What we are
next
discussing
reason
here,
why
these are
they fought
requirements
against
of the
or
law.
they decided to resist was
There are consequences
because of the
of
taxation
non-compliance. If the company
So
does
these
not
two
comply,
answers
that
the
had
company
should
does
be
not
the same.
file annual returns,
by
Those
the
two
then there are
answers
consequences
indeed
of
they
the
are
British
the same.
required that
So those
each
two
and every
answers
able
indeed
discuss the
body
they are
consequences
what?
person,
The same. All right. Part 3 of that question.
of
Part
able-bodied
3
men
of that
non-
question.
were supposed
They are
to
saying
give
the management is
Consequences.
proposing
pay taxes.
a
It's supposed to be
20%
paid
decrease in
non-compliance.
tariff
Because these are
to
statutory
improve
due,
occupancy at
responsibilities. Then the
100%
company that does
and
not comply
70%
then
in
faces
normal
certain consequences.
season
the
and
Agriama
off-season
people very
respectively.
angry
Advice
because they are
on
paying
the
tax
proposal.
DS007 is heavily
Stop.
enforced
just because you are
the
well
register
built and you have strength
relies on this
and you
data
have
of
grown,
public
you are
transparency.
mature, you are supposed to pay tax.
The register
by
of companies
just the fact
relies
that
on
you
the
are
data
there and you
that is
have
provided
Decrease
under
selling
DS007
price
for the
that
purposes
by
made
what?
of
the people
transparency.
By
very
20%.
angry and they
And
decided
failure
Decrease the selling
to
price by
file results
20%.
the
Now, to
British
analyze
lead
this
to-
question,
lead to
to analyze
automatic,
this particular question, there are
imposed
two
on
ways
them
we
to
can do
so
that.
they
Automatic.
could be
Number one,
forced to
we
go
can
and work
determine the
in
profits
cotton farm.
Automatic.
So that after you are you have
company,
worked in a cotton farm, you are
after
paid,
they have dropped the
company
selling
may be
price
fined
by
for
20%.
non-compliance.
Number two,
Company
we
can be
can
fined
determine the
for non-tax.
contribution
So that
as a result of dropping the what? The selling price by
There could be daily penalties that
20%.
accumulate and
Once we
are
have done that, we then
the
compare
next
with our
reason or
current
factor
what?
that
Selling price.
Understand?
So when you're
made
making
the
decisions
Agriama
here,
people to resist
you normally
Number
make
two,
decisions considering by
British
taking the
rule was
contribution
conscription.
or the profit. The contribution or the what? Profit.
Conscription.
So let me see. Let us
What do
do
we
this
mean by
together.
dormant
Let's do
status
this
as a
together.
consequence of non-
Your new selling price
The company may be
the
listed
decrease
as not in good
by
standing.
were
20%,
which may
it
affect
means
men,
your new selling
bank
price will be
accounts,
80% of
also
the current selling
may
price,
affect,
and the current selling price is what?
law and
2500.
these
may affect
made
So
bank
that your new
accounts.
selling price,
become
The
angry.
dormant
They were
status may
also
also
being used
affect
by the British
the
to go
variable cost
contracts
in the
is
world
not
war.
changing.
entered into
It
by
is
the
still
company.
going to be
They could see the suffering of the
750,
young
which
men.
is
Declared
300
null and void because the company
plus
has
who?
not
Rise
used.
200
up in arms
plus
against
That is a
250
consequence of
the
non-compliance.
To give you how
That is
much?
a
The next
consequence of
Seven
failing to file
is that
so that
they
now
lost
your
their
contribution
trade.
margin
That is number
Another
4.
consequence
will be
Was
2000 minus what?
striking
remember
750.
we were discussing the
It
cause
will
company
be
may be
1250.
resistance. We mentioned that
assistant failure can lead to the registrar
Your contribution margin sales
were
ratio,
active people
your contribution
in trade.
margin sales ratio
company. The
is
register
your
of companies
contribution
may
margin
with other
divided by what?
postal
Possibly.
Divide by
So
P.
this was a
dissolve the company
special
50
and seize its
divide by
trade
assets.
or a special industry that was
0.62.
bringing
Can
them
lead to be striking
income.
That is your
So
new
with
what?
the coming
Contribution
of the
margin
because of
sales
failure
they
to file.
abolished that
Annual
trade. Remember they were
To determine
engaging
your
in ivory.
profit, to determine your
Consequence number
profit,
5
no,
is
you simply
sale
take
of
your
ivory.
contribution
personal
margin,
which was
liability.
very
you multiply
popular
by your
that time
units
because it had
Personal
very
minus your
high
fixed
market
costs.
in the
Liability.
Alternatively,
in the Asian
What do
part
you mean
of
by
the world.
personal
So ivory was
Alternatively,
very
liability? Personal
was very
liability.
common
Directors
there,
can be held
and
personally
it-
liable.
you can take your contribution
extreme
margin
cases,
sales
it could
ratio,
be prosecuted.
apart from
you
ivory,
multiply
they
by
were
your
also
revenue in
engaged
shillings
tembo,
minus
that
your
is
who?
these are
Fixed cost
coconut
minus
brew.
your revenue
They brewed
times your
that,
revenue minus your fixed
tembo,
cost.
and
that
they could
is
Let's
sell that.
determine
lesson.
our
That
u-
made the people
the
now
units
that
as
they
a
could
result
no longer brew
The topic
that,
is
of what?
governance
The drop
the
under the
tembo,
guidelines
which is
in
made
what?
from
Selling
Selling
coconut,
price.
right?
They're saying
DS007
that
filing
if you
annual
decrease the
return.
selling price
Define
by
what
20%,
an
you're going to
annual return is.
improve
That
occupancy
said an annual
at
return is
100%
not a
and
tax.
70% in the
Had
normal
to
what?
It is a
Season.
statutory document
So we need to
that
get our
summarizes
new
Now,
the
the
legal
number of
structure
guests
of
that are going to
traditional
occupy
ways
that.
company
So
So
as
you're going to say
at
it
a
is
specific
50 what?
date.
Now,
Rooms
the British
It is just a
that
document
are being occupied what percent?
that confirms the
100%.
company's
activities. So
They are
this
being
made
occupied for how many months?
office,
8 months
Agriama
during
people
peak
company
season.
unhappy.
And you know each month is having how many
share
days?
capital,
30 days
the shareholders,
plus
And fight
there are 50 rooms
indebtedness of the
the
company.
that
British.
will be
Apart
This
from
lesson we
occupied
studied the
they wanted
deadlines and timing
70% of the
of
time.
making
The
annual return,
occupancy
of filing
during
annual
off-peak
returns.
is how many
The
months?
first
4
milestone
months.
is the
Traditional.
return date,
Then per day is how
which
much?
is usually the
30
anniversary of the
days.
company's
30
incorporation.
days.
power.
The
So-
second milestone is the filing
People
window.
wanted to retain
Filing has to
their
be done
traditional
between
This
20
means-
the
Remember,
20th
they had
day to
their
the
own
That is
42nd day
1200
of
guests.
the return date.
That is
I mentioned
Then there is the
4200
AGM
guests.
link.
Mekatililwa
These
Menza
returns
was
could be
one
made shortly
female
after
leader that
the
was leading them.
AGM is.
So the traditional
So that
people
the total
did not
here
want to lose
will be
Then in
the
this
16
lesson
traditional
again,
power
candidates
that
will
they
be
had.
200
applying
who?
They
Guests.
had
compliance.
their
So when
own
the
leaders,
company
they had
Before the
their
filing
own
is done,
rulers.
reduces
So
the
with
selling
coming of the
price
British,
verify
that
by
meant
what?
that what is
that
contained
now
in the annual
colonial
return
officials
is what
By
going to
appears
take
20%, your
company
occupancy will
statement.
increase or will come to what?
Then there is
16 to 100.
certification.
Let's
At
get
least
now
one
the
director
profit.
is
Let's get the
required to
profit. So you're
sign
going to
This
say
made
annual
your profit here
Agriama
is your
people very
contribution
angry.
margin.
Because
Your
they could now
contribution
see
margin is
that
1250.
independence is
are required to
going
be
You
attached
multiply
to
by
the
how many
annual
guests?
return.
16,200.
The company, the compliance
Minus
the
a
fourth one is
fixed
payment.
cost of
Say
15,750,000.
lodgement is only considered
So
complete
therefore,
once the statutory
Your
rulers
profit
understood
should be 4,000.
Then of course,
requirement.
lastly,
4,500,000.
we've discussed
the
the
belief
4,500,000.
system of the Agriama as
And
opposed to the
compliance
colonial
can lead to
officials.
automatic
who are
Then let's
just
advise
coming
them.
to make
Dormant
sure that
status,
the interest
writing
of
off,
the
Remember they're
and
saying
also
we
personal
taken
liability.
care
want
That's the end
to
of today's
advise
lesson.
them
Thank you for
lastly,
attending the lesson.
whether
Make sure
they
you go
should
to
drop the
video
selling price by
British,
20%
disregarded.
or
Take note.
they
There was
should
disregard.
continue
Then go to our
selling
revision partners.
and
We
continue
have
with the selling
questions
price of how
on
much?
Traditional
topic government
2,500.
standards and guidelines.
When
Attempt the
your selling
questions
price
without looking at the answers that are
is
provided
how
at
much?
the back of it.
Traditional
2,500.
culture by the British. So the
Your
British
profit is how much?
Please get
Your profit
all
in
of
shillings
our revision
and
partners.
your selling price is
We have
2,500.
analyzed
The profit is
past
6,300.
questions, topically arranged
6.3 million.
the kaya
When you
for
drop your
ease of
selling
revision.
price
very essential
by
Attempt
20%
questions on
to how much?
government standards and guidelines
To 2,000.
before
Your
looking
profit
at the answers at the back of it.
is how much?
Thank you for taking time to study with us.
4,500.
In our next session, we are going to the next
5 million.
when the British
governance
So there is a
standard
decline
number
in
008
profit
these
Home
by
made
what?
the
By
Agriama
1,800
people very angry
or
because
1.8
they-
million.
they
So
saw
therefore,
that
what will you advise them?
despised.
You're going to tell them
to
continue
has been disrespected. Apart
with
from that, the British
selling price of how
were
much?
involved in raping. In raping
Of 2,500. Why is that so? Because the profits have dropped to 4,500. When you have done what?
made the
When
Agriama
you
people
have
very
dropped your selling
angry,
price
and
with
they
an intention of increasing your occupancy. So kindly tell that organization not to drop its what? Selling price, not to drop
activities
its selling price. Right. Now that we have understood the single product, CVP, in your own free time, you can look at April 2023, question 4C.
Forced labor. There was taxation upon the people, and then they were forced to be conscripted to the army. That is to go
However,
into
it does not
World
guarantee
War
that
and,
the financial statements
the
are
British.
100%
And then
accurate
there
or
was
free
laws
from
of
all
trade.
misstatements
They
due
ignored
to
the trade
the inherent
activities
limitations of
were
an
feared by the
audit.
British, and they also wanted to retain
So a reasonable
leader,
assurance
and,
is a high
lastly,
level of assurance.
the
This is where the auditor
culture
gathers
being
sufficient audit
disrespected
evidence
by the
that enables him to express a
So,
positive.
as we end,
all
opinion.
employees
are paid
Let
in the
us,
month in which the
now
wages
look
or
at
salary
But that does not guarantee
results
Number
or
two,
the
that
consequences
of
the financial statements do not contain any material misstatements. The auditor may have conducted extensive audit
Other
procedures.
cash overheads of
The auditor may have, for example, obtained data from a large sample
due for delivery in September
that gives him confidence that the financial statements portray a true or fair view. So that's the meaning of reasonable assurance. It is a high level assurance, but we also have
a lot of lives
limited
were
assurance.
lost. in the
required
cause of
limited
a
resistance.
cash budget
Many
for the
people
month of
level
October
of assurance. This is
and
a
they
low
resisted
level
the
assurance.
British
October,
rule.
Low
Apart from
November,
that,
and
there
December.
was
assurance. A
massive
limited
destruction
assurance
of property,
is a lower level of assurance
destruction
than reasonable
of
assurance.
massive
In a limited
destruction
assurance engagement,
So that is it.
property.
for example, the review of financial statements, the
And
practitioner performs
also
fewer
they
procedures
lost their
than
Budget
in a reasonable assurance. Here, the procedures are few.
limited.
they lost their
The auditor does not examine,
another
does not carry
consequence
out
or result
extensive
of them,
audit procedures.
resisting the
That's why the
British rule.
auditor cannot
Then
give high
their
level of
leaders,
assurance because he has not conducted extensive audit
of their
procedures.
leaders,
So the objective here is to reduce
leaders
November,
the risk of material misstatements to a level that is
were deported.
acceptable in the circumstances, but where that risk is greater than
Leaders were
for a
Remember,
reasonable
deported.
assurance
Remember,
engagement.
they mentioned,
And the conclusion
Katibu
in a limited
was
assurance
deported, and,
candidates
Wanje
is
were
typically
deported
expressed
to
in a
sea
negative
because
form.
of leading the society
inflows.
in resistance.
For example, the auditor may state that based
against the
on
British. Then apart from
So
that,
our
the
review,
information
they were
given
nothing has come
List.
to our attention that causes us to believe
identified
that the financial statements are not prepared in all material respects in accordance with an applicable financial reporting framework.
pave way
So that's the
for
meaning of
plantation.
limited
So most
assurance.
of
It
the
is a
Agriama
lower
people were
level
pushed into
of
reserves to pave way
assurance.
for the,
This is
for
concept number 7.
for the
We are
British,
proceeding to concept number
plantations. Apart from that,
8.
number 6,
Excuse me.
reserve
Which is
of the Agriama, that is number
direct
6,
reporting
the position
engagement.
of women.
October.
The position of women was elevated.
Direct reporting
Shillings.
So
engagement,
the activity
also
of
sometimes
Mr.
referred to
Menza
as direct
as leader
engagement.
of the Agriama
Now, direct
Cash budget will contain
elevated
reporting
the position
engagement
of women
is an assurance engagement
as
where the
they,
practitioner
fought for the rights
directly
of the
measures
African people.
or
the women
evaluates
were
but again,
the
motivated
subject
to come
matter
and take
against the
leadership
criteria
position. So
and
they were-
expresses
they-
a
they
conclusion
could be able
thereof.
to fight
In this type of
the company
engagement,
intends with
the-
it that
the responsible
company
party,
intends to have
like the management, does not
treatment by the-
initially make the subject
Some
matter
of them who
information
are raping the
available to
women,
the intended
right?
users.
Because of the
Instead,
activities of
The practitioner
of,
gathers the information,
Mekatililu
applies
Menza,
the criteria, and reports directly
motivated the women to
on
also
the
come
subject matter.
and
Now, this is what I mean,
For the month
candidates.
of
fight
October,
against the
company
In a normal audit,
the-
you recall I gave an
the
example.
British.
I
Then
gave an
lastly,
example there of
the
audit of financial
Agriama
statements
lost
where the
their
shareholders appoint the management
the sources of
what
to run their
was referred
affairs
to as
on their
land.
behalf.
question.
The management is required to prepare
Have cash sales.
financial statements.
That
So
is the
their
first
land
source.
was taken
These
away
shareholders
Collections
and
from
now
debtors.
appoint
was
auditors
used by the
Those are the
to examine these financial statements. Then they
they are
give a
British to
report
cash
to the
sales.
shareholders as to whether the
established
financial
plantations,
statements
that
have
is
been
the
prepared
cotton and
in
rubber.
accordance
And
with
then,
an applicable
lastly,
financial
one that
reporting
I
framework.
had
Cash from
not
debtors.
mentioned.
So you see here, the
economic
auditor
activities
relies on
economic
information that is
activities
provided by the
From
management,
this question, those are the only two.
Activity.
the financial
were
statement.
Then you have disbursements
disrupted.
of payments.
Then expresses an opinion on these financial statements as
activities were
presented and
so the
prepared by the
activities
management.
of the Agriama,
The first
that
payment
is
here
trading
will be
But in direct
who are
reporting,
were now
I'm
disrupted
saying
because
that-
there was now a new
that
way of
it is
life
still an assurance
by,
engagement,
uh,
but this practitioner,
in
the
by
auditor,
the British.
Second
So,
payment,
my dear
directly
learner, what have we learned
measures
today?
wages,
or
Today we have
evaluates
learned
the
about
subject matter,
the causes of the
directly
Agriama.
measures or
Resistance.
evaluates the subject
And
matter,
Number two,
against
we
a
have learned
criteria,
about the
and then
consequences
expresses
of
a
their
conclusion
resistance
thereof.
against the
And in this type of engagement,
overheads
Now,
are in
the responsible
we
party
end our lesson.
does not
Allow
initially
me
make
to
the subject
give you
matter
now
available.
any
Uh,
other
Here, the subject
assignment
matter
that the
is made
company
available
pay
by the
for delivery of
Allow
a
me
new
to give
plant.
you an
management.
assignment.
This is
In a direct reporting,
For you
the
to do
financial statements
at home.
are not
plant is
Questions? Questions? And the questions are, number one, discuss the causes of the Agriama resistance. And then number 2, outline the consequences of the Agriama resistance. Number 1, discuss the causes of the Agriama resistance, and number 2, outline the consequences of the Agriama resistance. And that, my dear learner, now we have come to the end of our history and government lesson today. Bye bye until the next time.
Welcome to Manifested Publishers.
Hello, boys and girls. It's a pleasure to have you again. I am Teacher Purity, and this is Manifested e-learning platform. So join me for our today's lesson, and we shall learn about my extended family. My extended family. So in our previous lesson, we talked about my nuclear family. What is a nuclear family? Let's remind ourselves. Now, a nuclear family is made up of father, mother, and children. However, some nuclear families are made up of one parent and children. Others are made up of children alone, while others are made up of a husband and a wife. So my extended family. What is an extended family? An extended family is larger than a nuclear family. An extended family is bigger than a nuclear family. So an extended family is larger than a nuclear family. An extended family is larger than a nuclear family. Why is it larger than a nuclear family? Now, it is larger than a nuclear family because it now brings together other members of the family. So, it is larger because it brings together other members of the family. So an extended family is larger than a nuclear family because it brings together other members of the family. And these other members of the family, we call them relatives. They are called relatives. They are called relatives. They are called relatives. Now, who is a relative? A relative is a member of a family that you share the same blood. So, relatives are members of a family that we share the same blood. So, relatives are members of the family that we share the same blood. Members of the family that we share the same blood. Now, relatives are members of the family that we share the same blood, and our relatives are members of the extended family. So let's see the members of an extended family. Members of an extended family. So members of an extended family, we have grandparents, then uncles, aunts, cousins, we have nieces and nephews. So members of an extended family include grandparents, then we have uncles, aunts, cousins, nieces and nephews. So grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nieces and nephews are our relatives. They are our relatives and they belong to the extended family. So this is all about an extended family. Remember that it is larger than a nuclear family, and an extended family brings together other members of the family. You meet together as a family, maybe in occasions you have a ceremony, a birthday ceremony, a wedding ceremony, or you want to celebrate something, you'll meet the members of your extended family. Then these members of the extended family are called relatives. They are our relatives. And who are relatives? Relatives are members of the family that we share the same blood. Relatives are members of a family that we share the same blood. And here are the members of that extended family. We have grandparents, which includes your grandmother or your grandfather from both sides, either your mother's side or your father's side. Then we have uncles, aunts, cousins, nieces and nephews. In our next lesson, we shall talk about how we are related to these members of the extended family. We shall learn about a family tree, the family tree, and see the relationship between us and our relatives. Meanwhile, let's copy some work and we shall go through the work, or you shall work out the questions. So the first bit, write down 3 members of an extended family. Write down 3 members of an extended family. Then the second part, write the names of the following members in your extended family. Write the names of the following members in your extended family. First, you have the grandmother. Write the name of your grandmother in the blank space. Grandfather, do the same. And lastly, aunt. Write the name of your aunt in the blank spaces provided. As I said earlier, in the next lesson we shall talk about our relationship with our relatives, that is the family tree. So prepare to attend the next lesson. Thanks for being good listeners.
Welcome to Manifested Publishers.
How do you do, learners? My name is Stephen Kariungi. Today we continue with our biology lesson. The topic of discussion is cell physiology. So today we are going to discuss the assignment that I gave you during the last lesson. So I want each person to get their books and mark their work as we go through the questions that I gave you earlier. So in case you have not answered the question, kindly pause the video and first of all make sure that you answer the questions, then you can come and go through the answers after you have already answered the questions. Welcome. So during our last lesson, I gave you some questions that we are going to look at. So the first question was, state 3 properties of cell membrane. So you're supposed to state 3 properties of cell membrane. Number 1, we said that the cell membrane is semi-permeable. Semi-permeable. Number 2, we said that the cell membrane is polarized, meaning that it has charges. And point number 3, we said that the cell membrane is sensitive to temperature and pH. So that is how you're supposed to have answered the first question. So mark yourself right if you have those 3 points. So let's go to question number 2. Question number 2 was asking, explain the term semi-permeability. In fact, we have mentioned it in the first question, but the first question didn't want us to explain, but the second question wants us to explain semi-permeability. Semi-permeability means that the cell membrane is selective. It only allows the small molecules to go through, but not the large molecules. So semi-permeability means that is the ability to allow small molecules to pass through, but not large molecules. So the small molecules pass through, but the large molecules do not. So that is what it means by semi-permeability. To go through question number 3, we are told to state and explain 3 factors that affect the rate of diffusion. These factors are as follows. 1, there are more than 3, but you just highlight 3. There is the thickness of membranes. And here we said that the thicker the membrane, the longer the distance. The longer the diffusion distance of the particles. So the particles will have to go through a longer distance. The second point is in the size of the molecules. Whereby we say that large size molecules take longer to diffuse due to their large size. Three, we talked about the diffusion gradient. Which we said that the steeper the diffusion gradient, the steeper the diffusion gradient, the faster the diffusion rate. So that is for question number 3. Lastly, we have the 4th question. We have the 4th question that is asking, state 2 roles of diffusion in animals. So this one is not asking about plants, but is asking about animals. And one of the roles is the absorption of digested food in the ileum into the blood. That is by diffusion. Number 2, we can talk of gaseous exchange across respiratory surfaces. So that is the assignment. So check what you have not answered correctly and correct your work so that next time you are able to answer those questions effectively. So we'll stop there for today. The next lesson, we shall start at the 2nd physiological process, and that is osmosis. So see you then.
Welcome to Manifested Publishers.
Wambaje mwanafunzi, karibu katika kipindi kingine cha Kiswahili hapa katika ukumbi wetu wa masomo ya mtandaoni Manifested. Basi leo nakukaribisha ili tuweze kusoma sarufi ya lugha ya Kiswahili, na kile ambacho tutaingilia zaidi ni ngeli. Nazo ngeli ni 2 kwa siku ya leo, ngeli ya na ngeli ya izi. Hiyo ndiyo kazi tutakayoifanya kwa siku ya leo. Hizi ngeli, nafikiri katika mazungumzo yako umetaja maneno ambayo yako katika hii ngeli, labda kwa kujua ama bila kujua. Basi kwa siku ya leo nataka tuzamie zaidi, tutungie sentensi katika umoja na katika wingi, na hivyo basi utaona jinsi kazi yenyewe ilivyo rahisi. Basi tuingie moja kwa moja, tushughulikie moja baada ya nyingine. Tuanze na hii ngeli ya yaya. Ngeli ya yaya tuanze nayo. Basi maneno katika hii ngeli huchukua kiambishi ya katika umoja na ya katika wingi. Maneno katika hii ngeli huchukua kiambishi ya katika umoja na ya katika wingi kama viambishi ngeli vyake. Hivyo basi nataka tuweze kufikiria baadhi ya maneno ambayo yanapatikana katika hii ngeli, tutunge sentensi katika umoja na katika wingi, tuone jinsi ambavyo hii ya itajitokeza katika umoja na hii ya ijitokeze katika wingi. Fikiria hayo maneno. Nina neno kama vile maziwa. Maziwa. Mfano katika sentensi utasema vipi? Maziwa yamemwagika ama yamemwagwa. Maziwa yamemwagwa. Hiyo ni katika umoja. Katika wingi itakuwa wingi wa maziwa yanabaki kuwa maziwa. Basi itakuwa maziwa yamemwagwa, na katika wingi iwe hivyo hivyo kwa sababu hakuna wingi. Maziwa yamemwagwa. Angalia hiyo sentensi. Katika umoja tuna kiambishi ngeli ya. Kiambishi cha ngeli katika umoja ni ya, na katika wingi ni ya. Maziwa yamemwagwa, angalia kiambishi ngeli, na hapa maziwa yamemwagwa. Mbali na maziwa, neno jingine katika hii ngeli ni neno maji. 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 Utasema vipi katika umoja hiyo sentensi? Maji yamefanya nini? Maji yamekauka, ama maji yamechafuliwa, ama maji yamechafuka. Maji yamechafuka. Maji yamechafuka, hiyo ni katika umoja, na katika wingi ibaki hivyo hivyo, katika wingi ni maji yamechafuka. Hii ni katika umoja, na hapa ni katika wingi. Nafikiri unaelewa kile ambacho kinaendelea. Unaona katika umoja kiambishi ngeli ni ya. Kiambishi ngeli ni ya. Katika wingi vivyo hivyo, kiambishi ngeli ni hiyo ya. Tunga sentensi nyingine, tafuta maneno mengine katika hii ngeli. Neno manukato. Manukato. Manukato yalinukia. Yalinukia. Manukato yalinukia. Manukato yalinukia. Na hata katika wingi itabaki vivyo hivyo. Manukato yalinukia. Nataka uelewe zaidi kwamba kiambishi ngeli katika umoja hapa ni ya, na katika wingi ni ya. Kiambishi ngeli katika umoja ni ya, na katika wingi ni ya. Fikiria neno jingine kama vile neno maradhi. 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 Neno maradhi. Maradhi. Neno maradhi. Maradhi yameangamiza watu. Maradhi yameangamiza mtu. Maradhi yameangamiza watu. Basi katika umoja, maradhi yameangamiza mtu. Maradhi yameangamiza mtu. Maradhi yameangamiza mtu. Hiyo ni katika umoja, maradhi yameangamiza mtu, na pale katika wingi ni maradhi bado yameangamiza, sasa sio mtu sababu ni wingi, iwe watu. Maradhi yameangamiza watu. Maradhi yameangamiza watu. Basi mwanafunzi, mtazamaji, msomi wa lugha ya Kiswahili, umepata kuelewa kwamba katika umoja kiambishi ngeli ni ya, na hivyo katika wingi kiambishi ngeli ni ya. Ndio maana tunasema haya maneno yote yako katika ngeli ya. Yako katika ngeli ya. Mifano ni mingi tu. Fikiria mingine kama vile mate. Fikiria marashi. Maneno ambayo yako katika hiyo ngeli ya. Basi wacha tuangalie ngeli ya pili ambayo ni ngeli ya izi. Ngeli ya izi. Tumesha kamilisha mambo ya ngeli ya yaya, na inamaanisha kwamba maneno ni mengi tu ambayo tunaweza kuwa nayo, lakini nataka pia wewe changia zaidi. Tafuta maneno ambayo yako katika hii ngeli na uweze kutungia sentensi. Na utakapotunga sentensi utaona kwamba viambishi ngeli vitakuwa ni ya katika umoja na ya bado katika wingi. Tuangalie ngeli ya izi. Ngeli ya izi. ngeli ya easy. Katika hii ngeli ya easy kawaida tunasema kwamba maneno katika hii ngeli viambishi ngeli vyake huwa i katika umoja, na zi katika wingi. Huwa i katika umoja na zi katika wingi. Hebu fikiria maneno katika hiyo ngeli mengi tu, kama vile fikiria neno kama chupa, karatasi, nguo, ngoma, ndizi na kadhalika. Fikiria maneno yote hayo kisha uyatungie sentensi. Utakuja kuona kwamba katika umoja yanachukua kiambishi i na katika wingi kiambishi zi. Hebu angalia katika umoja, kwanza tutunge sentensi umoja na hii sehemu iwe ya wingi. Hebu tuangalie neno kama vile sahani. Neno sahani liko katika hii ngeli ya easy. Hivyo basi tunga sentensi uone jinsi hivyo viambishi ngeli vinavyojidhihirisha. Sahani imenunuliwa. Sahani imenunuliwa. Moja. Lakini zikiwa nyingi sema kwamba sahani zimenunuliwa. Sahani zimenunuliwa. Sahani zimenunuliwa. Sahani zimenunuliwa. Angalia, sahani zimenunuliwa. Basi katika umoja tumeona kiambishi ngeli ni i na katika wingi kiambishi ngeli ni zi. Hicho ndicho ambacho tuna haja nacho. Chukua neno jingine kama vile neno karatasi. Karatasi imeraruka. Karatasi imeraruka. Karatasi imeraruka, na zikiwa nyingi basi sio moja, karatasi imeraruka, lakini zikiwa nyingi ni kwamba karatasi zimeraruka. Karatasi zimeraruka. Kiambishi ngeli onesha vizuri. Kiambishi ngeli i katika umoja, kiambishi ngeli zi katika wingi. Tafuta neno jingine samahani. Neno kama vile nguo. Nguo imechomwa. Nguo imenunuliwa. Nguo imeraruka na kadhalika. Sema chochote kuhusu nguo. Nguo imechomwa, labda. Nguo imechomwa. Nguo imechomwa. Nguo imechomwa. Na basi katika wingi itakuwa ni nguo moja, 2, 3, 4. Zitakuwa nguo nyingi, basi nguo zimechomwa. Nguo zimechomwa. Nguo imechomwa, na pale nguo zimechomwa, basi onesha imechomwa na hapa zimechomwa. Hivyo nafikiri unaona jinsi ambavyo viambishi ngeli vinavyoonekana kwa uwazi. Chukua neno jingine kama vile neno chupa. Neno la mwisho sasa, neno chupa, chupa, chupa. Neno chupa, chupa. Unaweza ukasema nini kuhusu chupa? Chupa moja. Chupa moja unasema kwamba labda chupa imejaa. Chupa imejaa. ama chupa ilijaa, chupa ilijaa. Zikiwa nyingi basi zilijaa, chupa zilijaa. Hebu angalia sentensi, chupa ilijaa na hapa chupa zilijaa. Kitu ambacho nina haja nacho ni uone viambishi ngeli katika umoja na katika wingi. Unaona hapa ni i, zi. Katika hii nyingine i, zi. Katika hii nyingine karatasi i, karatasi zi, me. Sahani i, sahani zi. Basi nomino katika hii ngeli zinachukua kiambishi ngeli i katika umoja na zi katika wingi, hasa katika vitenzi vyake. Hivyo ndivyo viambishi ngeli katika ngeli hizi mbili. Tumeanza na ngeli ya ya, tukaona ni ya katika umoja na ya katika wingi. Pale ni i katika umoja, zi katika wingi. Basi kwa sababu mimi ndiye ambaye nimekuwa nikizungumza, basi nataka niamini kwamba hapo ulipo pia ulikuwa ukiandika mifano ya sentensi ili uweze kuelewa kile ambacho tulikuwa tunasoma kwa siku ya leo. Basi nikupe kazi kidogo ambayo nataka pia wewe uifanye. Kazi mradi, ushughulike pia wewe. Zoezi lako. Mwanafunzi, kazi yako ndio hiyo, nyepesi zaidi. Andika wingi wa hizi sentensi. Ona, ndizi imeiva ikiwa moja, andika wingi. Dawa imenunuliwa. Zaidi, ndoo ilitoboka. Hapa pengine malipo yalipokelewa. Nambari ya 5, makao yamepatikana. Na mwisho, marashi yamemwagika. Hadi hapo hakikisha kwamba kazi yenyewe umeifanya. Usije ukazembea. Kumbuka kwamba ajizi nyumba ya njaa. Usije ukajaribu kuzembea. Hakikisha kwamba umefanya kazi hiyo kabla ya kupatana nami katika ile video nyingine inayokuja. Shukran, siku njema.
Welcome to Manifested Publishers.
Hello learners, my name is Stephen Kariongi, and today we continue with our topic of discussion, nitrogen and its compounds. During the last lesson, we discussed how aqueous ammonia can be used to identify metallic ions by use of the color of the precipitate, whereby we saw that zinc ions form a white precipitate with aqueous ammonia. Copper 2 ions form a pale blue precipitate with aqueous ammonia. Iron 2 ions form a pale green precipitate, and iron 3 ions form a brown precipitate. So we'd like us to have a summary of the colors of precipitates formed by different ions when they react with aqueous ammonia. So we'll summarize this in form of a table, whereby we'll have on one column the cations, the color change when a few drops of aqueous ammonia are added, and the color change when excess aqueous ammonia is added. So we'll continue with the same here. So this is continued. So we'll start with calcium ions. Calcium ions, when a few drops of aqueous ammonia are added, there is no precipitate formed. And that is because aqueous ammonia does not have enough hydroxide ions to precipitate calcium ions. Also, when you add excess, there is still no precipitate formed. But if you have magnesium ions, will form a white precipitate and even on the addition of excess aqueous ammonia, the white precipitate remains. We continue further from magnesium ions and go to aluminium ions. They also form a white precipitate, and on the addition of excess ammonia, the white precipitate remains. Then zinc ions, which also form a white precipitate, but when you add the excess aqueous ammonia, the white precipitate dissolves. Into a colorless solution. Dissolves to form a colorless solution. So the zinc ions, they form a precipitate with the aqueous ammonia, but that precipitate dissolves. Then we go to lead 2 ions, also form a white precipitate, but the white precipitate remains. So it doesn't dissolve. So unlike zinc, whereby the white precipitate is dissolving with excess aqueous ammonia. So this forms the basis of chemistry practical, a section that is called qualitative analysis. The qualitative analysis, whereby when you are given a solution, you can be told to identify which cations are there by adding a few drops of aqueous ammonia or adding excess ammonia. And then the color of the precipitate will be as indicated here. So we want to make our table slightly longer. So we are saying that lead 2 ions, then we go to iron 2 ions. Iron 2 ions, we saw that they form a pale green precipitate with a few drops of aqueous ammonia. And when you add excess ammonia, the pale green precipitate remains. The precipitate remains, it doesn't dissolve. Then iron 3 ions, these ones form a brown precipitate, and the brown precipitate remains. Even when you add excess ammonia, it doesn't change. Now, there's something that I want to explain here, that the pale green precipitate is as a result of iron 2 ions. And the brown precipitate is as a result of iron 3 ions. Remember, we have 2 types of ion, or 2 ion cations, 2 positive ions from iron. So if you take this pale green precipitate and you leave it somewhere exposed to the air, it slowly turns brown. It slowly turns brown. And the reason for that is because the green iron 2 ions are oxidized by the atmospheric air to brown iron 3 ions. So that is as a result of oxidation of iron 2 to iron 3. Then copper Copper ions, they form a pale blue precipitate, but when you add excess ammonia, the precipitate dissolves. The precipitate dissolves into a deep blue solution. Into a deep blue solution. So the precipitate in the case of copper and zinc is dissolving. And I think we have identified most of the cations using aqueous ammonia and the color of precipitates that they form. Now, I would want us to ask ourselves two things. Why the zinc ions and the copper ions form precipitates that later dissolve with excess ammonia. And on that we can say that copper 2 ions and zinc ions form precipitates which dissolve with aqueous ammonia. And the reason for that is because this is due to formation of complex ions. Copper 2 ions and zinc ions, they have the ability to form complex ions, and that's why their precipitates are dissolving when you put excess ammonia. So, for example, in the case of copper 2 ions, the white precipitate we saw earlier is copper 2 hydroxide, which is pale blue. When you add excess aqueous ammonia, we form a complex ion that is written as this, a complex ion so this is a pale blue precipitate of copper. You add excess aqueous ammonia, you form a complex ion that is called tetraamine copper 2 ion. Tetraamine copper 2 ion. And this is a deep blue solution. And that is why we are saying that the blue precipitate in copper dissolves into a deep blue solution. For the case of zinc, the precipitate was due to the formation of zinc hydroxide. And when you add excess ammonia solution, there is formation of a similar complex ion that we call tetraamine zinc 2 ion. So here zinc is a white precipitate, but when you add excess aqueous ammonia, just like we had done up there, we form tetraamine. Tetraamine is 4 ammonia. Tetraamine zinc 2 ion. And tetraamine zinc 2 ion is a colorless solution. And that explains why the white precipitate is dissolving when you add the excess of ammonia. So it's only copper and zinc that form precipitates when you add a few drops of aqueous ammonia, and then when you add the excess ammonia, those precipitates dissolve into a colorless solution for zinc and into deep blue solution for copper. And that is because of their ability to form complex ions. And you can see that this ion is complex. Tetraamine, copper 2 ion. Tetraamine, zinc 2 ion. So our assignment for today. So the assignment, the first question, explain why precipitates of zinc and copper ions dissolve in excess ammonia, like we have just seen. Number 2, write a chemical equation to show each of the reactions in A above. The reactions that are taking place here, support each one of them with a chemical equation. So we are going to stop there. Until next time, goodbye.
Enroll your child for the Manifested e-learning platform and see their grades grow tremendously. These videos can be downloaded to a laptop for offline viewing or viewed from a smartphone in a course-friendly format.
Hello learners, welcome back to Manifested e-learning platform. I'm Philip, your social studies teacher. And we are still in physical environment, covering the map. Physical environment. We are still in physical environment. Physical environment. And in today's session, we shall be majoring on administration. 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 What do I mean by administration? Administration in a map means who's in charge of that area. Remember, each area has to have somebody who is in charge. And those people who are in charge of areas or certain areas of given jurisdiction, we call them administrators. And to start, let us write the administration hierarchy that we have. For instance, if we normally, the smallest hierarchy we have is a village. A village. Many villages makes a sublocation. Sublocation. Many villages makes a sublocation. Many sublocation makes a location. Many location makes a division. Makes a division. Many division used to make a district, but right now they make what we call a sub-county. Sub-county. And many sub-county, of course, will make a county. And in case you'd want to add another one, is that many counties makes a country. Many counties make a country. This is the administration hierarchy. That's the very first thing that we are supposed to know. Maybe before we illustrate whatever we are doing here in a map. This is administration hierarchy, and maybe to give them the titles of the people who are in charge of these hierarchies. Who is in charge of a village? This one is a village headman or elders. Okay, this one depends on the community. Some community have village elders, others have village headmen as the people who are in charge of that village. Sublocation, we have an assistant chief. Assistant chief. We used to call him a sub-chief, but that word sub no longer exists. We use assistant chief. And location, we have a chief. This one still is under a chief. A division was under a DO. That is a district officer. District officer. District officer. District officer. DO. But in the due dispensation, he is called ACC, Assistant County Commissioner. Assistant County Commissioner. Then we have sub-county. Sub-county, we have Sub-County Commissioner. Sub-County Commissioner. Also known as Deputy County Commissioner. Sub or deputy. Or deputy. Sub or Deputy County Commissioner. Deputy County Commissioner or Sub-County Commissioner for Sub-County. And county, we have County Commissioner. County Commissioner. County Commissioner. And I want to sound a very early warning. When we are talking about administration in the county, we don't talk about the governor. That is the biggest mistake pupils make when it comes to the hierarchy of administration. Administration are the people who represent the national government in an area. And here they are. They represent the national government in an area. They represent the president in an area. In county, who represent the national government? County commissioner, not the governor. The governor is the head of the county, but not the senior administrator. Administrator are the people who represent the national government and the president in an area. So county commissioner is the administrator of the county. Not the head of the county, the administrator of the county. Sub-county commissioner or deputy county commissioner, he is the administrator of the sub-county. District officer or the assistant county commissioner, he is in charge of the division. Chief, in charge of the location. Assistant chief, in charge of the sub-location. Village headman of the village elders, in charge of the village. What are they supposed to do as they represent the national government in those areas? In most cases, they are in charge of security. Security. So who is in charge of security in a village? Village elders. They are the people who are supposed to arrange for the security. In the sub-location, who is in charge of security? Is the administrator there, assistant chief. Who is in charge of security in a location? It is the administrator of the location. Who is the chief? These people are in charge of security. And it is very, very important to note their work is to provide security in that area. Security. Security in that area. So this is the first step. The hierarchy of the administration. The areas, the administrators. And I'm very specific. I'm not using the name heads. The administrators. Because this one is administration hierarchy. Now, let's go to the map. Using the information here. And we are supposed to know who is the administrator of a map, a given map. So when the question is getting to know the administrator of a certain area, there are two things that can tell you. There are two things that can indicate or can help you identify who is the administrator of an area. Which are those two things, or who are those two people, or which are the two things? Number one, we use offices. offices or an office. If you want to know who is an administrator of an area, go for the office in that map, in that area. If there is no map, then go for the boundary. Go for the boundary. These two things are the ones that will tell you this area is headed by who. This area is headed by who. Or again, they will also tell you this area is likely to be which area. Is it a location? Is it a sublocation? Is it a county? Is it a sub-county? So let's start from the office. Let's mention something about using an office or offices if they are many in a map. Let me give an example. We have a map here. We have a map here, for instance. We have a map here. This is a very good map that we can use to demonstrate. And we have a chief camp there. We have a chief camp there. A chief camp is an office. Now that we want to know the administrator using the office. So who is the administrator of this area? Using the office, we have an office of a chief camp. Chief camp is for a chief. So the person in charge, they are in charge of administering this area is a chief, because we have a chief camp. We have used an office. But I have to mention something else about an office. What if there were two chief camps? Our first example, there was only one office, so the administrator was a chief. Now, our second example, we have now two chief camps, or maybe 3 or 4. That means this area is made up of 2 locations, because chief is the head of location. 2 chiefs, 2 locations. 2 chiefs, 2 locations. A location, many locations, makes a division. So this area is no longer now a location. Let us do like it is a mathematical question. 1 chief camp, this area is headed by a chief because it is a location. That was example number 1. Example number 2, let me use a different color. Example number 2, what if there are 2 chief camps? What if there are 2 chief camps? A chief camp plus a chief camp, that means that area is a division. A chief camp plus a chief camp, that's a division. Who is the head of a division? A DO. A DO. Or in the due dispensation, ACC, Assistant County Commissioner. Now, another example about the same. What if there was 2 chiefs camp, and somewhere in the middle or somewhere in the map there is CC, standing for County CCO, County Commissioner's Office. County Commissioner's Office. In that sense, you go for the highest office in that map. You will not now go for the chief's camps, you will go for the ultimate, the highest office in the map. So this area, if it has a CCO, If it has a CCO, that is County Commissioner's Office, this means this is a county. And it is headed by a county commissioner. A county commissioner is headed by a county commissioner. These are the three things that you really need to differentiate when it comes to using of an office or offices to know the administrator. We started, if it is one chief camp, the area is a location, the head is a chief. If they are two, you do some mathematical additional. A chief camp plus a chief camp. Or a chief plus a chief, that's a DO. A chief camp plus a chief camp, that's a division. According to the hierarchy. But if there are more than one office, and they are different office, you go for the highest office in the area. You go for the highest office in the area. Now, using a boundary, let's go now to using of a boundary to get the administrator. Using boundaries. Using a boundary. 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 Let us now illustrate. We have illustrated how you use an office to get the administrator and the area. Let us now illustrate how to use a boundary. Number one, for a start, let us have an example of a map. Let me have a simple map. A simple map. Matter of fact, I can have several. Let me have like three maps so that I can demonstrate using different maps. We want to use a boundary, not an office this time round. A boundary to know who is in charge of the administration and also to know that area is likely to be a what. Let us have a boundary there. A boundary there. It doesn't have to be one line of a boundary. It can be like this one, for instance. A boundary can be dividing that area into several subsections. It can be, these are examples of boundaries in an area. Boundaries in an area. And it can be dividing an area into very many sections. Now, this is a boundary, this is another boundary, this is another boundary. This one is dividing this area into 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. 1, 2, 3 sections. 1, 2 sections. These are boundaries. What will you do with the boundary to get to know the administrator? First thing first, go to the key. Remember, each map has a key. Go to the key and identify which type of boundary is this one. For instance, this one is a sublocation. According to the key, this one is a sublocation boundary. Sublocation boundary. According to the key of this map, this is a sublocation boundary. What's the meaning of that? That means that this is a sublocation 1, this is sublocation 2. Because these are it is dividing. The location is a sublocation boundary. So this is a sublocation, this is another sublocation. And if this is a sublocation and this one is a sublocation, then sublocation plus a sublocation, we have a location. So the area is a location. And a location is headed by a chief. Using boundary is very, very simple. Let's go maybe to the second boundary, and you go to the key. The key of this map again, maybe this one, it is a divisional boundary. Is a divisional boundary. According to the key of this map, This is a divisional boundary. Where did you get the name divisional boundary? From the key. So this is probably division 1, division 2, division 3. Many division makes a sub-county. So this area will be a sub-county headed by a sub-county commissioner. Headed by a sub-county commissioner. Very, very simple. Very, very simple using the boundary. Using the boundary, that this one will be a sub-county commissioner or a deputy county commissioner. I have another example for you here. You go to the key and what you find is this kind of boundary. And this boundary is written sub-county boundary. According to the key of this particular map, this boundary is sub-county boundary. Sub-county boundary. The key of this particular map tells you that this is a sub-county boundary. So this one will be sub-county 1, sub-county 2, sub-county 3, sub-county 4. Many sub-counties make a county. So the whole of this area will be a county. And who is the head of a county? A county commissioner. A county commissioner in charge of the security. In charge of the security in that area. Now, that is exactly what you are supposed to know about administration. It's very, very simple. First of all, the hierarchy of administration. All the way from the village to the county. And the administrators. And I've explained, administrators, they represent the national government in those specific areas. And that is why in our administration, there is nowhere we have written the governor. These are national government administrators, and we have pointed out what they are supposed to do. And we have said that if you want to know who is an administrator of a certain area, or better still, if you want to know which area it is, there are 2 clues that you are supposed to use. Number 1, offices. Or number 2, boundaries. And we have gone through the office and we have said, if there is a single office, it is simple. If it is a chief camp and it is only one of them, then the area is a location and the administrator is a chief. What if there are 2 chiefs camp and no other office? Then simple mathematics. Very, very simple mathematics. A chief camp plus another chief camp, that means there are 2 chiefs, and 2 chiefs will not be the head of a location. Now we have a division, and a division is under district officer or assistant county commissioner. What if there are more than 1 office that are not the same? Simple. Go for the highest office according to the hierarchy. If there is an office of, there is a sublocation office, there is a location office, there is a division office, or probably there is also another sub-county office, you go for the highest. You go for the highest. And when we are using the boundary, we have said the main point is, first of all, identifying which boundary it is. Where will you get that interpretation from? From the key. So we have said, for instance, example number 1, this was a sublocation boundary, meaning this one is sublocation 1, sublocation 2. Many sublocations will make a location, and a location is headed by a chief. In the second example, I've given that this boundary is a divisional boundary, meaning this division 1, probably division 2, division 3. Many divisions will go to a sub-county. So this area is a sub-county under sub-county commissioner. And I've said he doesn't have to be a sub-county commissioner. Sometimes he will be a deputy county commissioner. And lastly, we have said maybe this one is a sub-county boundary, dividing this area into 4 sub-counties. Sub-county 1, sub-county 2, sub-county 3, sub-county 4. Many sub-counties, according to our hierarchy, we go to a county. So this area is a county, and a county is under county commissioner in charge of security in that area, in representing the national government, representing the president. And that is that for administration. Maybe for your personal work, for your revision exercise, can have something for you. And please remember to submit your work into this platform. Your assignment, let me give you a simple assignment so that you can use the knowledge that we have. An assignment, the assignment that maybe, let's have a map. Let's have 2 maps. Let us have 2 maps. Let's have 2 maps so that at least one for the boundary, one for the office, one for the boundary, one for the office. And our boundary looks something like that. And our offices here, we can use a chief camp there and a sub-county office there. Chief's camp, sub-county office there. And your simple question will be, here, let me use red. Question 1. This area is likely to be a what? Which kind of an area is this one? Is it a village? Is it a county? Is it a division? Question 2 here. Question 2 here. And question 2 is who is the senior? Who is the senior administrator? Of the above area. Of the above area. Who is the senior administrator? But here about the second one, I have to mention maybe this one is a locational boundary. Is a locational boundary. Is a locational boundary. I have to give you, now that there is no key, I have to mention which type of a boundary it is so that you can be able to make your judgment correctly. So these 2 examples are enough to give you an oversight of what we have gone through. Question number 1, this area is likely to be a what? You have the offices. Chief's Camp's office, sub-county offices. So with the knowledge we have learned, you can be able to get that one at ease. Number 2, using a boundary now. Who is the senior administrator of the above area? Who is in charge of administration in this area? Perhaps I would have said this is area A, area B. And with that, our lesson is over. Please submit this one in our platform. God bless you. See you in our next session. Adios.
Welcome to Manifested Publishers.
Welcome learners, my name is Stephen Kariungi, and today we continue with our topic of discussion, nitrogen and its compounds. So we have already discussed the laboratory preparation of nitrogen gas and the properties of nitrogen gas. So I'd like us to briefly look at the uses of nitrogen. And first of all, nitrogen is used in the large scale manufacture of ammonia. And this process, we refer to it as Haber process. So during Haber process. So Haber process is the process that is involved in the large-scale manufacture of ammonia, and nitrogen is used as one of the raw materials. 2, nitrogen is used in light bulbs. The bulbs that we commonly use, due to its inert nature. It is inert. It doesn't oxidize the filaments of the bulb. So because of the inert nature of nitrogen gas, it is used in light bulbs due to its inert nature. It's relatively inert that prevents oxidation of the filament. Oxidation of the filament. And 3, nitrogen, because of its low boiling point, it is used as a refrigerant. As a refrigerant due to its low boiling point, very low boiling point is used, and this is especially in the storage of semen, for artificial insemination. So the storage of semen for artificial insemination requires very low temperature, and those very low temperature can be provided by liquid or liquefied nitrogen, which has a very low boiling point. So having discussed about nitrogen, its preparation, properties and uses, we are going to next discuss the oxides of nitrogen. And basically, nitrogen has 3 common oxides. Number 1, we have what is called nitrogen 1 oxide. So these are now the compounds of nitrogen. These are not now pure nitrogen, but they are nitrogen compounds. They are nitrogen oxides. So we have nitrogen 1 oxide, which is written, whose formula is that. We also have nitrogen 2 oxide, whose formula is indicated there. And then we have nitrogen 4 oxide. So basically those are the oxides of nitrogen that we have, compounds of nitrogen and oxygen. So we'll start with the first one, and this is nitrogen 1 oxide. This nitrogen 1 oxide, in its preparation, it is prepared in the laboratory by heating ammonium nitrate. In Form 2, under the topic of salts, there is a place where we learnt about action of heat on nitrates. And we saw that ammonium nitrate, as one of the nitrates, decomposes on heating, what we call thermodecomposition, to form nitrogen 1 oxide. So you can see that nitrogen 1 oxide is prepared in the laboratory by heating ammonium nitrate to decomposition. Ammonium nitrate to decomposition. So we are saying that ammonium nitrate, it undergoes thermodecomposition to produce nitrogen 1 oxide plus water. Nitrogen 1 oxide is a gas. So if we balance, those are 4 hydrogens and 3 oxygen, 1 plus 2. And that equation is balanced. And then we can say that nitrogen 1 oxide is collected over warm water. Because it is soluble in cold water. So once we have prepared the gas, nitrogen 1 oxide, we are supposed to collect it over warm water. And that is the reason that it is soluble in cold water. So if you use cold water, you may not collect much gas. So let's see the diagram that is involved in the preparation of nitrogen 1 oxide. So we have heat. We heat ammonium nitrate. Then it's collected over warm water, because we've said that the gas is soluble in cold water. Then we have nitrogen 1 oxide. So this is the laboratory preparation of nitrogen 1 oxide. So we should put the flask in a slanting position to make sure that the water that is produced does not flow back into the hot flask. Because if it flows back into the hot flask, it would break, or it would cause cracking of the flask. So basically it is important that we place the flask in a slanting position so that the water that is produced does not flow back. So we are going to have an assignment on nitrogen 1 oxide. So the assignment explain how nitrogen 1 oxide is prepared in the laboratory. 2, write an equation for the reaction. And 3, explain why the flask is placed in a slanting position during preparation. During preparation. So we'll stop there. Until next time, goodbye.
Welcome to Manifested Publishers.
Welcome, learners. My name is Stephen Kariungi. I am presenting to you a topic in Form 1 Biology, and the topic is cell physiology, as indicated here. First of all, I would want us to go through the objectives of this topic. So we look at chapter objectives. The first one, we need to understand what is cell physiology. So we need to understand the meaning of cell physiology. Number 2, we should also be in a position to relate the cell physiology and the structure of the cell membrane. So the other objective is to be able to relate the process with the semi-permeability of cell membrane. Number 3, we'll also be able to state the meaning of 3 physiological processes. These are diffusion, osmosis, and active transport. So, be able to state the meaning So you'll be able to state the meaning of those 3 terms, the term diffusion, osmosis, and active transport. Objective number 4, we'll be able to study the factors that affect these 3 processes, the factors that affect diffusion, osmosis, and active transport. So that is objective number 4. Then we go to objective number 5. We should also be in a position by the end of the topic to describe some of the experiments that one can carry out to investigate diffusion, osmosis, and active transport. So we should be able to describe experiments to investigate the above processes. And finally, the objective number 6, we should be able to distinguish between Turgor and plasmolysis. Those are two terms that we'll also be learning in the course of the topic, and we should be able to distinguish them. So those are the objectives that we shall be fulfilling in the study of the topic cell physiology. So from there, we'll embark on an introduction. And we want to understand what is the meaning of the word cell physiology. As the word suggests, it has something to do with the cell. And the fact that it ends with ology, it means that it is a study. So in this case, in cell physiology, we study the cell functions. So in this case, we shall look at the various structures that are found within the cell and how they carry out their functions. So we will say that cell physiology is the study of cell functions. And of course, in a cell, we know that we have different structures. We have the cell membrane, we have the mitochondria, we have the chloroplasts, if it is a plant cell. So we need to understand how those structures function within the cell. So basically, we shall be dealing with cell physiology. Now, a very important aspect of cell physiology that we also need to look at is the structure of cell membrane. We need to look at the structure of the cell membrane, because before something gets into the cell or out of the cell, it has to go through the cell membrane. So the cell membrane is a membrane or a layer that is made up of two things. It's made up of something that is called a phospholipid and a protein layer. So it's made of two layers. Made of two layers, i.e. phospholipid. I'll explain what is a phospholipid and a protein. So it's made up of those two layers. A phospholipid is a fat layer. Anything that ends with the word lipid, it means that it's either a fat or an oil layer. Then, of course, the other one is a protein layer. So what we are basically going to do, we are going to have a diagram showing the cell membrane and how it looks like. So the cell membrane looks like that. First of all, there is the first layer, assuming that this is the outside and this is the inside. So this first layer is the phospholipid. is the phospholipid layer. And then the one that is marked using a different color, that is red, that is the protein layer. So basically we are saying that a cell membrane is made of a phospholipid layer or a fat layer and a protein layer. Now, in between the protein layer, there is a small opening here, and that opening we call it the pore, P-O-R-E. It's a hole that allows substances to get inside the cell and also outside the cell. So that opening is meant for that. We shall look at the characteristics of the cell membrane. So this is basically the cell membrane structure, which we have said is made up of two layers. There is a phospholipid layer on either side, then there is the protein layer in between. There is a protein layer in between. So it doesn't have to be in one position. It can be in a number of positions. But basically, there is the phospholipid layer and there is the protein layer. Then in between the protein layer, there is a pore, or there is a hole that allows materials to get in or out of the cell through the cell membrane. And then the other thing that I want us to look at are the properties of the cell membrane. We look at the properties of cell membrane. One, we say that the cell membrane is semi-permeable. The cell membrane has what is called semi-permeability. And that means that it allows only the small molecules to pass through, but not large ones. So it's only allowing the small molecules to pass through the pore. Yeah. Those, if molecules are small enough to fit the pore, they can pass through, in and out. But if the molecules are large, they cannot pass. So we say that the cell membrane is semi-permeable, or we can say it's selectively permeable. So you can also stroke that with selectively permeable. It means the same thing. Now, characteristic number 2 is that the cell membrane is sensitive to temperature and pH. It's sensitive to temperature and pH. And the reason for that is because the protein layer and the lipid layer, they are sensitive. Yeah? If the temperature is too high, then the cell membrane is affected. If the temperature is also too low, it's also affected. Same case applies to the pH. So pH is the degree of acidity or alkalinity. So it's sensitive to temperature and pH. And lastly, number 3, the cell membrane is polarized. Polarized means that it has charges. It has charges that are positive and negative. Has charges that are positive and negative. So basically, we have looked at the objectives of the entire topic. We have listed them down. Then we have gone ahead and defined what is cell physiology as the study of cell functions. We have looked at the structure of the cell membrane, and we have seen that the cell membrane is made of 2 layers. There is the phospholipid layer and there is the protein layer. And then we have also said that in the protein layer, there is a pore that allows materials to get in and out. Then we have looked at the properties, 3 properties of the cell membrane. One is its semi-permeability or selectively permeable, meaning that it is selective. It selects the small molecules to go through, but not the large ones. It's also sensitive to changes in temperature and also pH. And finally, the cell membrane is polarized. That means that it has both positive and negative charges. So our lesson for today will end there. Then we'll have an assignment based on what we have learned. So the first question, we define the term cell physiology as we have learnt it. 2, we describe the structure of cell membrane, description of that structure. And then number 3, we state 3 properties of cell membrane. So we are going to stop there for today, and we shall continue from there next time. Goodbye.
Hello learner, welcome to Manifested e-learning platform. My name is Purity Anzelimo, and our subject today, what I'll be taking us through is physics. Yes, and during our lesson today, we are going to look at electromagnetic spectrum. Electromagnetic spectrum is a topic in book 4. That is what we are going to look at during our lesson. So we have the electromagnetic spectrum. And as I've said, is one of the topics in book 4. And this we are going to relate a lot with what we covered in book 2 under the topic waves. So we are going to borrow a lot from the topic waves in book 2 and also in book 3. Yeah, because as you can see, we have the electromagnetic spectrum, and in book 2, we learned about the electromagnetic waves. So by the end of this lesson, you should be in a position 2. So we have the objectives for this lesson. You should be in a position 1 to describe fully a complete spectrum. That is a complete electromagnetic spectrum. You should be in a position to explain what an electromagnetic spectrum is. So by the end of the lesson, you should be in a position to explain the electromagnetic spectrum. Electromagnetic spectrum. That's 1. And number 2, by the end of this lesson, you should be in a position to state the properties of electromagnetic waves. State the properties of the electromagnetic waves. State the properties of the electromagnetic. We abbreviate it as EM, electromagnetic waves. So that is what you should be in a position to, by the end of the lesson, explain the electromagnetic spectrum. What is an electromagnetic spectrum? As we have our topic, and what are the properties of the electromagnetic waves. So to begin with, we are going to deal with, or we are going to define what we are calling the electromagnetic waves, so that we can be able now to define what an electromagnetic spectrum is all about. So we are going to start with electromagnetic waves. Electromagnetic waves. So from Waves Book 2, what are electromagnetic waves? When we talk of electromagnetic waves, we say that these are waves that do not require a material medium for their transmission. They are waves that do not require a material medium for their transmission. That is simply what we refer to as the electromagnetic waves, or what we call the EM waves. They are waves that do not require a material medium for their transmission. Remember, we gave two categories of waves in Form 2, whereby we looked at the electromagnetic waves and the mechanical waves. And one of the major differences between the electromagnetic waves and the mechanical waves is that for the electromagnetic waves, they do not require a material medium for their transmission, whereas for the mechanical waves, they require a medium for their transmission. And these electromagnetic waves, again, we can define it as, because we think that all electromagnetic waves are transverse in nature. Remember that all the electromagnetic waves are transverse. They are transverse in nature, meaning that the vibration of their particles is at right angle to the direction of wave travel. And therefore, we can also say that electromagnetic waves, we can say that they are produced by the oscillating electric and magnetic fields at right angle to each other. So we can say that they are produced, or they are formed by the oscillating, they are formed by the oscillation or the oscillating magnetic and the electric fields at right angle with each other. So those are the EM waves. We have seen that they can be transmitted through a vacuum because they do not require a material medium for them to be transmitted. Then we are also saying that all the electromagnetic waves are transverse in nature. And we are saying, therefore, it means that the vibration of their particles is at right angle to the direction of the wave travel. And that's why we are saying that they are produced by the oscillating magnetic and electric fields at right angle with each other. So these are the electromagnetic waves, or the EM waves. Now we need to list down those electromagnetic waves that we are talking about. So we list down, they include the electromagnetic waves, or the EM waves include. So we have various, or we have electromagnetic waves, examples of electromagnetic waves. We can list them down in any order. We have what we call the gamma rays. Gamma rays is an example of an electromagnetic wave. We also have what we call the microwaves. The microwaves. We also have the visible light. The visible light. We also have the infrared radiation. The infrared radiation. We also have the ultraviolet radiation, or what we call the UV radiation. The ultraviolet radiation. We also have what we refer to as the X-rays. We have the X-rays as an example of the electromagnetic waves. We have the X-rays. So we have the gamma rays, we have the microwaves, we have the visible light, we have the infrared radiation, we have the ultraviolet radiation, and we also have the radio waves. Radio waves. So these are our electromagnetic waves. Remember where we have come from? We want to define an electromagnetic spectrum. And we have started by asking ourselves, what are these electromagnetic waves? And we are seeing these are waves that are produced by oscillating magnetic and electric fields at right angle with each other. And we have the list of the electromagnetic waves. We have the gamma rays, we have the microwaves, we have the visible light, we have the infrared radiation, ultraviolet radiation, we also have the X-rays, and we also have the radio waves. Now all these waves that we have listed down are what we are calling the EM waves. And these waves, as we have seen, they are transverse in nature, meaning that also they have sections of crests alternating with troughs. That is what we said in book 2 on waves, that when we talk of a transverse wave, it has sections of crests alternating with troughs. And note that all these electromagnetic waves, we are saying that they are waves in nature. And therefore, when it comes to the properties of the electromagnetic waves, we'll also be looking at some of the properties of waves as